For anyone who studies the Old World seriously, few things are more impressive than the way the Norse handled wood. Modern viewers tend to think of Viking longhouses, ships and storage barns as temporary structures that survived by luck, but the truth is far more deliberate. The Norse developed a preservation method so effective that archaeologists still uncover beams, posts and planks that remain structurally sound after centuries underground. If you've ever wondered how the Vikings managed to build ocean-going ships that didn't rot apart mid-voyage, or longhouses that endured brutal winters, let's break down a process that is rarely explained clearly. The Viking technique of keeping wood alive long after the tree was felled. And this is important, not just as a historical curiosity, but as know-how you can use today in homesteading, woodworking, off-grid living, or survival situations. The Vikings began with the most crucial step, cutting the tree at the right time of year. The Norse understood that wood behaves differently depending on when it is harvested. They typically cut timber during deep winter because the sap content was low. Sap is the perfect food source for fungi and insects, and when wood is harvested in spring or summer, that sap becomes a curse. Winter-cut wood holds far less moisture and far fewer sugars, giving it an immediate advantage before any preservation technique begins. Many traditional boat builders still follow this practice today. A modern example for viewers is simple. If you ever plan to build something that must last outdoors, cutting or sourcing winter-felled wood will instantly prolong its lifespan. Even firewood benefits from this timing, but structural beams benefit even more. It's a difference you can feel in weight, smell and drying time. The next key step was splitting the log rather than sawing it. Vikings preferred riven boards. Planks split along the natural grain because the grain remained intact and continuous. A saw cuts through fibres, exposing far more end grain that absorbs water quickly and weakens far faster. Split wood sheds water like a roof. Sawn wood drinks it. This is why, many preserved Viking artifacts still hold together. They were shaped in harmony with the tree's grain. The longship's famous clinker construction relied on thin riven planks that flexed with the sea while resisting rot. Today, anyone making tool handles, fence posts or primitive shelters can apply the same method by splitting logs with wedges or an axe. Riven wood lasts longer, stays stronger, and seasons more evenly. For off-grid builds, this single technique can add decades of life to a structure. The Vikings protected wood with one of the oldest waterproofing solutions in the world, pine tar. This is the heart of the method. Viking pine tar was not a casual coating. It was a carefully produced, highly effective resin that soaked deep into wood fibres and sealed them. Pine tar production, it involved stacking resin-rich pine roots in a sealed, low-oxygen pit or kiln, and then heating them slowly so the tar would drip into a collecting vessel underground. The resulting substance was, antimicrobial, insect-repellent, water-resistant, and flexible enough to withstand freezing temperatures. Every longship that crossed the North Atlantic was coated in pine tar. Longhouses used tar on exterior beams, storage barns used it on doors and thresholds, and even tools received a coat. Tar gave the Norse the confidence to build in damp climates where untreated wood would rot in a single season. Modern homesteaders still use pure pine tar on barns, fences and cabins. If you like, a viewer could replicate it on a small scale. Gather resin-rich pine stumps, bury a clay-lined collection vessel, cover the roots with turf, then apply steady heat from above for hours. The resulting tar can be brushed onto green or seasoned wood. It is admittedly messy, but it works. The Vikings further extended wood life by charring surfaces that touched soil. This technique, known today as shōsugi-ban in Japan, was used independently by many cultures, including the Norse. When support posts or fence stakes were set in earth, Vikings would lightly char the lower end over a fire. The charred layer is essentially carbon, inhospitable to bacteria and fungi, resistant to insects, and, well, slow to absorb moisture. A charred post lasts dramatically longer than an uncharred one. Archaeologists have excavated Norse post holes where, remarkably, charred ends remain intact even after 1,000 years. For a practical modern application, anyone building an off-grid shelter garden fence or woodshed can char the portion of the post that goes in the ground. It requires nothing more than a flame and, well, controlled rotation. Once the surface turns black and flaky, just brush away any loose ash and set it in the soil. The difference in lifespan can be measured in decades. The Vikings also controlled airflow while drying wood. Seasoning is where, honestly, many modern attempts fail. The Norse stored wood under eaves, raised off the ground, with good ventilation but protection from sideways rain. Quick drying leads to cracks, but slow, steady drying prevents warping and mould. This careful seasoning allowed tar and oil to penetrate evenly once applied. A modern example is, well, simple. Store your boards under a roof, never directly on the ground, and allow air to circulate around every surface. Old world rules still apply because wood hasn't changed. The final advantage was really how the Vikings combined all of these methods into one system. Each technique, winter cutting, riving, charring, tar coating and slow seasoning, works on its own, but the Vikings layered them. A longship plank could be winter cut, riven, dried slowly, shaped, coated in pine tar and retarred each season. A house post could be charred on the buried end, seasoned under shelter, installed with drainage around its base, and tarred above the soil line. This holistic approach is why their wood endured. Viking preservation techniques remain some of the most practical historical skills we can study today. They weren't magic. They were the product of observation, patience and respect for natural materials. Anyone building off-grid, crafting traditional tools, or restoring old timber can adopt these same principles and honestly see immediate results. If you found this guide valuable, do subscribe to Relic Logic and share it with someone who loves real history, real craftsmanship, and real survival knowledge.